Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel for my closing thoughts on Attack Sub. Now, to be perfectly honest, I have very little, if anything, bad to say about this game. For a remarkably simple game with very simple components, it does a really grand job, I think, of simulating the essence of modern submarine warfare. And of course, by modern, I really mean late 1980s, early 1990s. But to be honest, I don't know if that much has changed in between that decade and the present day. It's still a matter of staying silent, stalking your opponent, getting the perfect solution before they do, and getting your weapons lock and so forth. I like the granularity of the game. We've already seen the playthrough, which I'm sorry I wasn't able to complete. I'd rabbited on for a while before noticing that my camera had failed. I'm still not quite sure what went wrong there, but it was all a bit unfortunate. If anyone wants to know, the outcome of that game was that the two NATO submarines managed to finish off the Simferopol, and then one of them was able to withdraw. I stopped the game after a while because it was starting to go on a bit, but between one sunk Soviet vessel and one successful withdrawal, it was a clear victory for NATO. But back to the granularity, I like the fact that within both sides, NATO and the Soviet Union, you get certain things like the Alpha class here, which because of its massive speed advantage submerged, you cannot simply cancel a close open range move that the Russian player, Soviet player might play. You actually have to draw a random number on top of it. And that's nice. A game this simple, I think, wouldn't normally include a detail like that, but it is folded so effortlessly into the rules. What else can I say? I love the graphical layout. It's a bit dated, the artwork and the way the cards are arranged, but stood the test of time well, and it gives you everything you need in a simple package. I love the endless replay value you can get. You could make a homemade campaign if you wanted to, with a certain number of ships and submarines, and you could go from mission to mission. You can actually play the scenarios given in this game sequentially as a hypothetical war between NATO and the Soviet Union, and it's so absorbing. Because in a similar manner to Upfront, I keep bringing Upfront up because it's billed even on the back of the box as a sister game to this one. You have named ships, you get emotionally attached to them, and you want them to do well. And the game does a good job of getting you into that mindset. Another thing I wanted to mention was the on the bottom of the box. Note the age range, 12 and up. Bit young for a war game, you'd have thought. But I would say they're not kidding. This game is so incredibly simple that you could teach 12-year-olds, or perhaps kids even younger if they had the interest to play it, and they'd be up and running in fairly short order because you've seen the ship data cards, you've seen the deck of playing cards, the action cards for this game. It's basically numbers, visuals, initials. Basic literacy is all you need to play the game, really, and the rule book is so short and so straightforward. The whole system is just elegantly beautiful. So I think the only thing that does set this game back a bit, and you did notice it a bit during the playthrough, I'm sure, is that luck of the card draw can always go against you, especially when it's a shared deck of cards. Of course, NATO was groping blindly along, hoping for more sonar cards than they actually got. And the Soviet player was ending up with a lot of response cards that were only playable by submarines. And I think that kind of phenomenon serves a useful purpose in helping to model frustration that things are not moving as rapidly as you'd want them to, especially in a tense battle situation. The designer's notes are very helpful for clarifying certain elements of this game. So it may be tempting to think, as the designer says, that you might think that you're only switching on your active sonar when you play an active sonar card, and the same with the passive sonar. That's not actually true. They do represent the gradual build-up of information, somewhat more efficiently if you use active sonar, but then you're laying yourself open to being detected in turn. And a lot of the same goes for getting the right weapon lock on card. You might well have a strong sonar contact, but for whatever reason, and bearing in mind this game is representing vehicles that are quite possibly the most complex humanity has ever designed and created. There's a myriad of things that can go wrong. A weapon may not be online when you need it, or it may not be optimally online. So that's another thing that's represented. But it keeps the game tense. Even if you're terribly frustrated, it keeps the game tense. And it adds to the sense of a narrative unfolding. One thing I didn't mention previously, I bet everyone was wondering it, there is a scenario that is very loosely based on the story of Hunt for the Red October. And I know that there is well, actually, there's more than one very good fan scenarios out there. In fact, the demonstration one I played was a fan-created one on Board Game Geek, which I really like, because although most of the sub versus ship scenarios can be a little bit unbalanced, that particular one with the two coastal submarines against the coastal patrol force, it works really well, and it's a great. I would recommend that one along with the first of the original scenarios in the game, which pits two NATO hunter killers against two Soviet equivalents. They are probably the best two to teach new players the game. I would always get this game out for anyone who is a fan of submarine warfare or fairly simple card games in general, because there's something quite unique about it. I find a lot of card games out there either go down the route of being quite detailed and to varying degrees, or being a bit too generic. I think Attack Sub occupies a very, very unique place somewhere between the two, because there is enough accuracy and detail in it to really give you a feel for the different kinds of subs and surface ships you're driving. But at the same time, it's cleverly kept general enough that you can focus on what you're doing. It's almost like having, although as a sub captain, an awful lot has to be going on in your head, you do have your crew and your equipment around you to relieve you of some of the burden of that thinking. So, this game covers that really well, I feel. And it has long been out of print, sad to say. You can still find copies of it. It's not that difficult to track down, but I think it's become rather expensive of late. And I can understand why. I was very, very fortunate to find my copy as a student for a reasonable price. It could really do with a reprint. I don't know who owns the rights to it, but it's one of those games that I feel sure should see the light of day again and should be updated, because the global political situation is changing so much. There are new major players. The original game slightly lacked something for not having the French as a playable force on the NATO side. I felt they ought to have been included. I understand why they were not. It was probably to keep the costs down, and to be perfectly honest, the inclusion of the Royal Navy is a good way of including one of the supporting NATO navies, and the Argentines are there for those who wanted to play the Falklands scenario. So it wasn't purely a United States Soviet Union show, but it could definitely do with an update and a reissue. I would probably be first in the queue to get such a thing if it ever saw the light of day. I know I say this a lot about a lot of games, but if you do get a chance to play Attack Sub, and if you have any interest in submarine warfare, try it. I think you'll love it. I think you'll love it. It's so easy to pick up. if you're someone who enjoys Harpoon as a standard or similar rule sets for modern naval warfare, you may find it a bit simplistic, but it's still an excellent filler in between those games. And as with some of the other games on this channel, if you want me to post more content about Attack Sub, you'd like to see some different playthroughs, maybe even a complete playthrough after the incomplete one I stuck up in the previous video, please do let me know. Or if you just have any questions about the vessels represented or anything about the game, please do ask. I'll do my best to answer as quickly as I can. But I would say, if you know anyone who's got this game, or if you get the chance to get it yourself, do get it. You won't regret playing it. And I think once people realize what an easy game it is to pick up, you will not be short of opponents. Now it says for 2 players, but I would not go with that. I would actually disagree. It works brilliantly as a 2-player game, but I have found you can play with up to 5. And the very simple solution, and that doesn't change the dynamic of the game too much, is simply give each of the participating players a ship and follow the rules. You know, each player has an intrinsic hand of 3 cards plus 1 for however many vessels and or helicopters they control. It does make you pass through the deck timer more quickly, and that can alter the balance of some games, but there are ways of mitigating that. You can so easily make this a fun group game, and I have done that, and it has been loads of fun for all concerned. This is a game I will keep coming back to, and yes, if anyone was wondering, my copy is never leaving my hands. Happy to play it, but you know, I'm keeping it. Thanks very much. So I hope that's been of use as an introduction to Attack Sub, and hope it's raised the profile of this game that I don't want to say that the early 1990s was a long time ago, but it is a bit distant on the ear now. And if I can do something to raise this excellent game's profile just that little bit more by spreading the word around, then I'm happy to have done so. But thank you very much for all that, for staying with me while we looked at this particular game. As always, it's brilliant to see you all on the channel. Hello to all the regulars, and if you're new, I thank you for joining me. It's great to have you on board. Please feel free to check out some of the other videos. I'd be delighted if you do, and leave feedback and comments. But otherwise, until next time, thank you very much for tuning in.